point that we were afraid of reaching back then, where the government is already spending more in Social Security benefits than it collects in taxes. And what is our solution? Well, we cut payroll taxes even more.
Yeah.
And we exacerbate the current shortfall and do nothing about the even bigger looming long-term crisis.
David Stockman, the former Reagan budget director, has a pretty interesting take on this. I'm not sure if I agree, but it's definitely worth talking about, is that it's immoral to run a deficit, period. That if we're going to have this government that costs 40% more than we're actually currently paying for it, we got to hike up those rates so that we know what we're getting, that it's immoral to pass on the interest payments to everybody. And we need a reality check. I mean, that's the truth.
Well, I would agree.
Mitt Romney,
I would agree that there's no excuse for the deficits, because the government has a way to finance the spending. It can raise taxes, and the spending is benefiting this generation, and so the taxes should be borne by this generation. To say that we're gonna have all these benefits and pass on the cost to the future, that is immoral. And of course, I'm arguing all the time that our children and grandchildren, to the extent that we actually did try to pass on this burden to them, they wouldn't shoulder it. They'd leave the country and they'd go someplace else.
Yeah, and just look at where we're headed down right now politically. I mean, Mitt Romney is running as precisely the guy who's going to continue telling us the fable. He is really actually running to Obama's left on Medicare. He complains that Obama has cut Medicare. He ran to Rick Perry's left on Social Security. Oh, you can't call it a Ponzi scheme. He says every day, I'm going to cut, cap, and balance the budget. No, you're not. He has no credible plans for tackling any of these issues, and he wants to lock in defense spending or military spending at 4% of GDP forever, which is an insane idea to begin with. And he says that we've cut down to the bone dangerously. So he's not addressing any one of the big-ticket spending items.
Yeah, I hate it when Republicans criticize Obamacare on the basis that it cuts Medicare. I mean, come on.
And he's going to win the nomination with that argument. We should reflect on that for a second and ask ourselves, was there a Republican Party that was ever serious about cutting government and limiting government, both on a moral sense and a fiscal sense? We haven't actually seen that from the Republican Party in generations, I think.
Yeah, I mean, there were Republicans who opposed Medicare before it was passed. The problem is the minute one of these entitlements comes in, everybody is in favor of it, even the ones that were opposed to it before it was enacted.
And let's remember what Republicans did when they controlled Washington, D.C. 8 years ago. They passed Medicare Part D. And a lot of, Rick Santorum, who's now talking about how freedom is the number one issue, except when it's freedom I don't like, he was right there supporting things like that. So we can't...
Well, remember, freedom is important, but he's also a team player. And that's playing on the team is more important to him than freedom. So,
right.
Because we played some sound earlier where he actually told somebody in the crowd, well, if you want limited government, vote for Ron Paul.
Yeah, and Mitt Romney says something similar, like, if you want an expert on the Constitution, my good friend Ron Paul is over there. I mean, it's a sign, I think, of how the Republican Party has gone adrift. Yes, Ron Paul made the Final Four, and that's an amazing thing. He's gotten twice as many votes, basically, as he did last time around. He might yet make a Final Three or even a Final Two, depending on if he can step on some other people's fingers on the lifeboat of presidential politics. But ultimately, his faction, one, isn't very Republican to begin with, and is not at all guaranteed that they're going to be voting for the eventual nominee. But two, is treated as a fringe within the Republican strain in favor of Santorumism, which is kind of a George W. Bush on steroids. Compassionate conservatives. We need to, intervene militarily in Syria and Iran, and God knows what part of the jungles in South America. So yes, Ron Paul's out there and he's making a noise, but it's a limited noise within the Republican tent, and it remains to be seen.
Although I would argue that with a lot of the Republicans that make a difference with the delegates, he's doing a lot better than he's doing in the popular vote. I think I've seen by some accounts that Ron Paul is actually in second place right now when it comes to delegates. Not winning in the caucuses, but the actual amount of delegates that he's going to end up with would put him in second place. But hey, Matt, thank you very much for coming on the show. Good luck with your book. Look forward to having you on again at some point. Everybody else, we've got another full